Good Tuesday morning. Today is August the 12th, and we are looking for the updated information to come in from the National Hurricane Center on the latest on Tropical Storm Erin. I'm meteorologist Craig Muller from the 13 News Now Weather Center. I hope your Tuesday's off to a great start. It looks like my chair may be a little high. I may adjust this down just a bit. At any rate, we're looking forward to getting that updated tropical information. Let's go ahead and set things up. Again, at any moment, the 11 a.m. update will come in from the National Hurricane Center. Let's talk about what's going on while we are awaiting it. Of course, now today, the 12th, we are coming in still about a month from the peak of the hurricane season. And just to give you a little intel on where we are and what we're looking at, this is Erin, our fifth named system of the Atlantic hurricane season. Andrea, very, very short-lived. That was a 12-hour tropical storm. It was incredible. It was here and then gone just as quickly as it developed. So that one wasn't much of anything. Barry produced a little bit of rain as it moved inland down. Again, it was a brief, short-lived storm system that came in down into Mexico. Then there was Chantal. A lot of rain associated with that, some flooding back into North Carolina, but really wasn't a very powerful system. That one, again, just a tropical storm. And Dexter, which was a fish storm. Now we have Erin. Erin is different. Erin has come off the African coast, just a wave of low pressure that got better organized as it crossed Cape Verde Islands. And then as it's moved a little farther to the west, it's become a tropical storm. And it is forecast to become our first hurricane of the season. Now, eventually, this system is expected to not only become a hurricane, but as it traverses the main development region and really comes to an area a little bit north of the Lesser Antilles and north of Puerto Rico, still off to the northeast of the Turks and Caicos, that's an area where the sea surface temperature is very, very warm, and the environment should be very conducive to strengthening, and it is forecast to become a major hurricane. That was with the 5 a.m. update. Again, we're going to have the 11 o'clock update, and we'll see if it's come in yet. Let me show you what the forecast is and kind of update you on what the normal numbers are like and what we typically expect. NOAA revised their 2025 hurricane season outlook in early August, and they're still going 13 to 18 named storms, 5 to 9 of those hurricanes. It was previously 6 to 10, and major hurricanes are going 2 to 5. Again, I think it was 3 to 6 in May when they had first put it out, but we're still looking at 2 to 5. And this is just a little bit above what you would typically expect for the average numbers, but pretty close to average. Colorado State University went with 16 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. You see the average numbers, 14, 7, and 3. So far, 4. That needs to be updated to now include Erin, our fifth tropical storm. Now, as we take a look here, there are a few areas that we've been monitoring, but the one area that we're paying really close attention to is this swirl here, again, moving away from the Cape Verde Islands. So we'll take a look. Let's see if the 11 o'clock update's in, and it is. Okay, we are looking live at this. This has just dropped. Here we are, not even 10 minutes before 11, and the 11 o'clock advisory is in. All right, so what has changed since 5 o'clock? We still have the same winds, 45 miles per hour with gusts to 60. That has not changed. You can see it's located right now about 1,765 miles east of the northern Leeward Islands. So we take a look at that. It's now about 820 miles west of the Cabo Verde Islands. So it is out there in the central Atlantic. What has changed a little bit is its forward motion went from west at 22 miles per hour. It's now moving west at 23. So very little change there, but a little bit of additional forward speed. Now I'm going to hand scrub this and move this slowly forward so we get a look and you can see what happens here. Still a tropical storm expected tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Expected to see about 45 miles per hour, those maximum sustained winds. Jogging it forward, excuse me, a little bit there by Thursday, 8 a.m., those winds getting a little bit higher, up to about 65 miles per hour. That's Thursday morning. By Thursday evening and into Friday morning, you're now looking at a Category 1 hurricane. That would be our first hurricane of the season, as that is expected to develop over those warm waters. This is in an area, again, conducive for development. We're looking at 85 mile per hour winds anticipated from the Hurricane Center by Friday morning at 8 a.m. We'll continue to move it forward, and as we go Friday night into Saturday, it further strengthens a Category 2. Now, I will say the track is a little farther south than where it was previously. Significant to note, with the previous forecast, we're going to continue to run this out, but I want to tell you about some of the subtle things that I'm seeing as I look at this right now. Previously, the cone of uncertainty was a little farther to the north. So this tells me the Hurricane Center leaning in a little bit more to the more westward positioned European model. And I'm going to show you the European model and the American model, the GFS. I'll show you that model comparison as we go along here, so stay tuned with me over the next few minutes. But it looks like the Hurricane Center has shifted this a little farther to the west and is keeping it a little farther to the south. On this current path, and we'll go back to the map, you can see it is still north of the Leeward Islands and north of the Virgin Islands there as well, and north of Puerto Rico. But it does put Puerto Rico on the southern edge of that cone of uncertainty. And in the previous forecast track, Puerto Rico was just outside that cone. So it has shifted just a little farther to the south. And you'll notice by Sunday morning, 8 a.m., a major hurricane. So that's what really jumps off the map at me as I take a look here, that the official track is maybe just a little bit south of where it was, and that is more in line with the European model. Now we'll take a look at the spaghetti plots, and as we jump to this next map, you can see how things are playing out as it moves along. Let me stop it here. Notice how these models are so closely aligned going forward. As we continue to run it out, you see some models shifting a little farther to the north right there, but there is a number of these models that is a little bit farther to the south. So again, this is in line with what the Hurricane Center has done, shifted it just a little closer to what the European model was looking at. Interesting to note, it's a subtle change, but these are the things that are really important as we look forward. We have to take a look from run to run. What are the models doing? Are they trending one way or another? Is there more disagreement or more question as to which model is going to win out, or are the models coming closer into alignment and giving you more confidence in a particular direction? That's what we're looking at here at 13 News Now with our team of meteorologists. So right now from previous, it's a little shift, but it's still worth noting the official track may be just a little bit south with that cone of uncertainty, now including parts of Puerto Rico and staying just north of the Dominican. Now, eventually, there should be a turn to the north. We'll go back to the maps, take a look at this, and I want to show you the European and the U.S. model side by side. And as we take you forward, initially, you're not seeing much here, but you're going to start seeing lines here depicting where this thing is centered. That's the American model, a little bit sooner to develop it into a stronger system, but you'll see the Euro jumping on right there. Both these models very close. Notice the difference though. The European model, which is in red, the American model, or the GFS in yellow, start to diverge a little bit, with the Euro getting closer to the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos there. And then the GFS, let me back it up a little bit here and we'll show you the difference. Again, the GFS model, the American model right there, coming very close to Bermuda. That's the American model. That is Wednesday. That would be a very tough strike there for Bermuda. The center a little bit west, maybe the hardest hitting impacts of this a little farther to the west of Bermuda, but still that wind field, some surge, certainly some very, very rough seas associated with this system getting close to Bermuda there. Now we got to take a look at the European, because that Euro model is kind of the way that the Hurricane Center is trending a little bit more in that direction. You'll notice how it makes that turn, but it is much closer to the East Coast than the American model was. As we take a look here, again, you can see this distance, maybe a couple hundred miles offshore. The worst of this, with this scenario, the worst of this would be offshore. So again, you take a look at that right front quadrant, the area where we typically find some of the most powerful winds, the strongest winds associated with these systems. That's going to remain offshore, even with the European model projection here, which is closer to the U.S. But we have some significant impacts if it follows that European track more closely. So let's talk about that. As we can see here again, that model brings it closer to the coast. And while the strongest winds may be offshore, through Wednesday and into Thursday, a system that large with that much energy and that much wind around it is going to really be kicking up the seas and pushing a lot of water back towards the coast, some larger swells. It would create, as the folks with the East Coast Surfing Championships, and they're scheduled to go next week, they are going, oh my gosh, this could be epic waves here in Virginia Beach, some of the best they've seen. That's good. But for people that are not surfing, it could spell some dangerous conditions at the beaches with a very high threat of rip currents, large surf, powerful surf coming in, and potentially some significant beach erosion. That would be Wednesday into Thursday. You'll notice after that, that recurvature takes place and the system starts to move off to the northeast. So that would carry it away and things would improve significantly Thursday into Friday. Again, two different models going beyond the Hurricane Center's forecast, and I'll just bring it back to you so you see how close they all are. The American model turns north sooner, bringing it closer to Bermuda. The Euro gets closer to our coast and eventually makes a turn. Now, why the reason for the turn? What are we looking at? There is a cold front that will be approaching from the west. As that comes in out ahead of that front, there's going to be a stronger southwest wind. Those are the steering currents that should take the system that is moving to the west-northwest and eventually think of it just kind of almost like a lineman in football, blocking it, hitting it and standing that hurricane up. And then as those winds continue to guide it, not only does it stand the hurricane up, maybe turning a little bit more to the north, eventually those southwest winds would push it off to the northeast. That is the thinking right now. If that front is slower to come in, or if something changes and it's not as strong a front, if the dynamics of the hurricane and the development of the hurricane change a little bit and it's not as heavily impacted by those steering currents, different story. Then that blocker that we want to hit and kind of stand up the hurricane and redirect it comes in much weaker, or it doesn't come in on time. That opens the southeast U.S. up to more trouble, and here potentially in the mid-Atlantic. So let's talk about the thinking as things look right now. Okay, currently, here's what we're thinking. The bottom line, model guidance will continue to shift and modify a little bit over the coming days. We still have over a week before this thing brings its impacts to Hampton Roads. We're talking middle of next week if the Euro and the GFS are correct, probably Wednesday into Thursday. So plenty of time for things to shift, and it will shift a little bit and change up. Recurving, again, that turn to the north and eventually the northeast and turning back out to sea, that is the most likely scenario, but we're still going to be impacted with heavy surf. I think if it takes that American model, the GFS guidance, and adheres more to that path, you're still looking at some larger swells coming in from a massive, potentially major hurricane out there around Bermuda. It's still going to send in increasing wave heights. We're still going to see that. But if it takes the European model's course and gets much closer to the coast, then in that case, we're looking at tides probably building through the middle of next week, and certainly some very rough surf and potentially some beach erosion. That's all on the table as possibilities. So when it makes the turn to the north will be the key in us really determining and hopefully eventually writing off a U.S. landfall threat or direct impacts here. Even if it doesn't make a landfall, which right now it's still unlikely to do here in the U.S. If it comes closer, it could still have some heavier impacts. So again, there's a lot to watch, and we will continue to look at all of that, consider that, and keep you updated. You definitely want to continue to join us and keep checking back. Now, I mentioned there are two other areas in the Atlantic that we're watching. One is to the south of Nova Scotia, and you can see that area out there, only a 10% chance of development. And then in the northern Gulf, technically the Hurricane Center is saying a 0% chance. I always hate to say 0%, but the bottom line is that area of low pressure in the northern Gulf is so close to land already, it's kind of straddling land. So the chances there, again, still near 0%, and that other area at 10%. So neither one of those really looking all that impressive. In the Eastern Pacific, we've had a lot of action so far this season, but at this point, that area is not really showing much. Out there in the Central Pacific there, north of Hawaii, you can see this area right here. That is Henriette. It is a hurricane. There's this area of low pressure here, and the winds around that area of low pressure are actually kind of steering Henriette, and we'll continue to kind of twist that and I think pull it off to the north. So let's go ahead and take a look at the forecast for Henriette. And again, you see how that low would eventually steer it off to the north and weaken it over the cooler waters in the North Pacific. So that's a look at what's happening over on the Pacific side. Again, the reason we're doing this update, we have the very latest in on Erin and our tropical storm. Just so you know, since the 5 o'clock update early this morning, still a tropical storm with maximum winds 45 miles per hour, gusting to 60 miles per hour. It is currently about 1,765 miles there to the east of the northern Leeward Islands. So it is far, far away. We've got a week to watch this thing as it traverses the Atlantic and eventually expected to make that turn to the northwest and eventually an anticipated turn to the north. But I will tell you, currently the most updated 11 o'clock forecast track from the National Hurricane Center does bring it in a little closer here to Puerto Rico. And you can see that zone, that cone of uncertainty does include Puerto Rico, places they're watching it very, very carefully. And again, eventually the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, all of these islands will be watching it as a major storm, major hurricane anticipated to be in place there by early Sunday morning. Where it goes after that, that's where the questions lie. Again, some of the models kind of curving it off back a little closer to Bermuda. Again, the European model solution bringing it back here a little closer and then eventually turning it off to the north. In either case, it looks like it's going to be churning up the coastal waters along the southeast U.S. We could be looking at some larger tides coming in, obviously a lot of surf with that, some dangerous riptides for next week, and plenty to watch. We will, of course, keep you updated. It's so important that you check back with 13 News Now as we continue to get more updated models, and that's going to be the key. Again, this is nothing to get panicked about right now. We don't want anybody to worry too much about all of this based on what we see right now, but this is a good time, a week out, to start thinking about things like, do you have a plan in place? If this were to swing even farther to the west and, you know, maybe come closer to the East Coast, would you know what to do if there were some things that were ordered like evacuations? Do you have things, hopefully you have already insurance in place, but, you know, if this were to come closer to us, do you know what you do? Is your family prepared to act if you would need to? And do you have some supplies in place? Keep in mind, going back to that first graphic I showed you, we are still a month from the peak of the hurricane season, and some internal discussions here at 13 News Now. It looks like there could be some more activity, some more waves coming off the coast of Africa as we go over the coming days and weeks. So a lot to watch here. And of course, we'll keep you updated here from 13 News Now. All right, that's going to wrap up this particular live stream here as we update you on Erin. Again, one more time, the 11 o'clock update is in. It is still a tropical storm, maximum winds 45 miles per hour, gusting to 60. And again, about 1,765 miles away from the Leeward Islands. So plenty of time to watch it. but we'll certainly keep a close eye to things and keep you updated right here from 13 News Now. Again, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller, and again, I invite you to come back and continue to check in with us for more updates on this and all of the tropical activity throughout the season. We'll keep you posted